Welcome, everyone. This is Dr. Tim McGuinness. I'm the Managing Director of the Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams, SCARS, a government-registered crime victims assistance and crime prevention nonprofit organization based in Miami, Florida, and Monterrey, Nuevo Leon, Mexico, as well as with offices and affiliates and partners in more than 60 countries around the world. This special conversation is going to allow us to talk with individual scam victims. This is part of a series, so we will be presenting each individual interview, and it gives us an opportunity to talk to scam victims openly, candidly, full transparency. We will not be editing their commentary. We will be presenting it whole, unedited, and complete. What we're talking about today are three topics. The first is to try and get a better feel for the victims around the world, different countries and cultures, about their scam experience itself. We'll talk for a few minutes about that. Then we'll move on to their experience after the scam ended. What was that like for them individually, personally, and also in the context of the country or culture within which they live? And then lastly, to explore a little bit about the challenges of helping, supporting scam victims in different countries and cultures, the barriers that are in the way, the challenges, the opportunities, and to the extent that victims can find support services within those countries. So thank you for joining us. Today, I have as my guest, Zoe. Good afternoon, Zoe, and thank you so much for joining me.
Good afternoon, Dr. Tim.
So we're going to talk about your personal experience in dealing with your scam. So can we begin by telling us a little bit about the nature of the scam, what type it was, how it functioned, how you first encountered the criminals that defrauded you?
Yes. So it all started on Facebook. So I have the majority of my Facebook friends are people I know usually, and then there are some distant relatives and then mutual friends of my family members. And so when I received a friend request on Facebook and a message on Messenger, and I thought it was, you know, a distant relative or someone from the community.
Right.
And I got that impression. So, okay, I check, and then I also check his profile on Facebook, and I didn't think too much. I was like, this is a little odd. But then I didn't think too much, and I accepted it. And then not long after I accepted the friend request, and I received a message on Facebook. And the way the scammer talked to me was friendly. The scammer talked to me in a way that he knew me from somewhere, from some friends. I got that impression. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay. And then I started talking to the scammer, and that's how it all started. And
let me ask a question.
Yes.
So when you talk about the community, you're referring to other people from your background. Your ancestors, yes, your family is originally from Burma, Myanmar, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah. Sometimes, you know, like people know me and they're like, or they know my parents, and then, you know, oh, I know so and so. Are you the daughter of this and this? Or are you a niece of this person? Or, you know, and then, oh, exactly. Okay, so how we usually introduce each other if we don't know each other. Right. So the scammer didn't say any of that, but I got the impression, and I didn't think too much. So
Did
it
the scammer say anything to hint that it was another Burmese Myanmar person, or just generally friendly, and you intuited that this person might be part of that community?
he didn't say anything like that, but like he would share a video or post that is of Burmese, like
Right.
Burmese videos, or like funny videos, or like Burmese post in Burmese, like posts in Burmese, things like that. And then the way the scammer talked to me, it's like he or she, let's say just he in this context, like he's a friend of someone from the Burmese community, and
Right.
then accidentally found me on Facebook through other friends, and then okay, now I would like to be friends with you. So that's the impression I got.
That was kind of the thing that I was getting at, is that this was somebody who was sufficiently aware and using this as a grooming tool to try and develop a connection with you, so that they, or significant types of manipulation later on. So can you continue on and talk about the mechanics of the scam and how it worked after the conversation got started?
So first it was just, it was a little weird at first, because after a few first, the scammer was very polite, and start introducing himself using the stolen identity, and then the occupation of that stolen identity. And then he said, I'm this, this is what I'm doing. And then he introduced me as a soldier from the military, and then he's right now deployed, and then he just wants to be friends with me.
What
And then
country did he say he was deployed in?
Syria. and and then as soon as he mentioned that, I started Googling, and did whatever I thought I had to do, or the right thing to do. And I believed him for some reasons. I don't know why, but I believed him. And
So
then,
you now understand a lot of the reasons that lead people to accept this so easily, right?
yes, yeah, it was, I would say he knew what he was doing, but I didn't.
Right.
He was very clever, or they were very clever. Um, the information that I was receiving, like it was believable. And I was like, okay. And then we talked, and then 1 or 2 days, and then he started mentioning about, oh, his future plan, and how he wanted to do this and that, oh, he's looking for a serious relationship, and then he would like to talk to me, and this and that. I was like, like, you just we just like started talking to each other a few days ago. What are you talking about? And then, but he was very persistent. And then I would say after 1 or 2 days of having conversation on Messenger, he requested, he was asking me my WhatsApp. And I said, no, I don't have it. I lied. And I said, no, I don't have it. I cannot give it to you because you're a stranger. But he was very charming, I have to say. And then kind of like manipulated me, and then put me in a situation where I cannot like not give it to him, like my WhatsApp information. Yeah.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, just we can be friends, like it's not a big deal. And then from Facebook we completely switched to WhatsApp. And then from there, I would get messages around like 9 or 10 p.m. of my time.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes 3 a.m. in the morning. just like Scars mentioned in the articles and, you know, other people. And then we didn't even talk that much, to be honest. But whenever we were talking, it was, now I knew, like now I know, but I didn't know, like every conversation we had was very intentional. So that made me believe that, oh, you know, this person really cared about me and this person really wants to know me.
By that, what you mean is that every conversation was essentially sort of begun with questions about what you're doing, what you're thinking, what you're feeling. In other words, it felt like somebody was actively listening to you. Is that what you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And the scammer would also share the fake story of, you know, the of that person. And then so first he would like start with his own story, and then, you know, he kind of like make a way for me to share my information, like
Right.
my story and what I feel, what I think, yeah, things like that. And then it's like it started like very smoothly, and then down the road, um he would tell me how much he missed home, and, you know, how lonely he is, this and that. And I believe I could resonate with him. That's why I was like, okay, I believed what he was telling me, and I was um comforting him, and then he would comfort, like, you know, he was comforting me, and then we were like doing it like that with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, the relationship was building up. And you know, oh my gosh, all the lies that he told me, now I'm thinking of it, it's a joke. But at that time, I wanted to believe it. I thought it was real. So I believed, I would say 90% of what he was telling me, but I also had my own doubt in the back of my head. Okay, I cannot completely believe him, but I believed him enough, you know, to get involved in this whole scam.
Now, remember that hindsight bias completely lies to you about what you knew and what you didn't know.
Mhm.
And, you know, the reality is during those grooming days and the manipulation that follows, you may have had momentary doubts. And
Yes, I did.
then the next, you know, the next amygdala hijack or the next love bomb happens, and the neurotransmitters and hormones blow up, and those doubts get pushed away by the emotions of the moment.
Yes, yes. It, I could say I was very emotional. Um, Probably because I was also like very vulnerable at that moment.
Right.
And just I was like, okay, finally I found somebody who could understand me and who I can understand, and how wonderful it is. That's what my thinking the entire time of the scamming.
Well, of course, that's what they want you to think. That's the end objective of the manipulation, is to get you to a state of total trust. Then comes the big question. Money, money, money.
Yes.
So you don't have to tell us how much, but tell us
Mhm.
what the story was that he was asking the money for, and how did you end up sending it?
So he was telling me that he got injuries and then he could not afford it. And I was like, what are you talking about? You are in the US military. I'm pretty sure they, you know, the government, the US government will take care of you. Like, you know, it's nonsense. Actually, I argue and questioned him that, you know, this is nonsense. But then he used he said, oh, you know, because I'm the minority, I am not getting the treatment that I deserve, this and that. And then I was like, are you sure? Like, I don't think this is, you know, I don't think so. But then I believed him, and that's how it started. And then first, you know, it's very small amount of money. And then the second time, a little bit more. And then the third time, it's bigger. But then I wasn't very sure. Like you say, I had my own doubts, and I had my moments of like doubts, and I don't know if I should do this. But then again, I was very determined to help him because I was, how do I say this? In my head, this is what I was thinking. In my head, we were friends, and then trying to um be like be in a romantic relationship. So I wanted to help him as not as like a girlfriend helping boyfriend, but you know, a friend helping another person, or just a human being helping another human being. And I thought I was doing the right thing, but I wasn't doing it.
Certainly. So how did the scam end? How did you discover that it was a scam, or how did it actually end its?
So during the scamming period, I would see um the same like picture, not the same picture, but you know, the same person with different names on Instagram. And then I would ask the scammer, like, I see people using your picture and creating fake accounts. What are you gonna do? And he was like, oh yeah, because my old Instagram accounts, uh, well, not accounts, like my old Instagram account was hacked. So I had to create this one. And I asked the scammer the same question on Facebook when we first started having conversation.
Mhm.
Like, oh, it looks like your account uh, isn't like old. It's recent. Did you recently create this account? You know, and he was like, oh yeah, because you know my account was hacked, and then I had to create a new one to keep in touch with this and that, this and that. So, and then he would tell me lies, and then, oh yeah, people were, you know, hacking my account, so that's why, but don't pay attention to it, this and that. And I was like, okay. And then I I give reaction to some of his posts on Facebook, and then a woman, another like Burmese woman from the community, not from the same city, not from the same state. I believe she is in Florida or something like that. I don't remember. But she messaged me on Messenger, and she was like, "Why are you friend with this guy? Because he is a liar. Like he is not a good person. He has so many other fake accounts, and you know, um, asking for money from other women." And I did not believe her.
Of course.
Yeah. And then the next day I asked the scammer, like, this is what I've been told, like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? And then again, he would tell me lies and, oh, don't worry about it. Actually, he didn't really like tell me much about that. He diverted my attention,
Right.
but he didn't like answer my question. I said, okay, if he doesn't want to answer me, that's fine. And then I kind of like forget about it. And then a month into the relationship, um, I talked to the woman again. I said, because I was I had my own doubts by then. I was like, could you tell me more about this person? You said you saw other accounts. Could you send those links to me? and she screenshot all that fake accounts, and then she sent it to me. And she would also send me links of, that person account, but some of them not working anymore. And then and then I would not sleep. I would go to Facebook, I would go to Instagram, and then I would search that, the same like identity of that person. And I found so many accounts, and I would screenshot them and everything, and then I send it to the scammer on WhatsApp.
So what was the trigger that ended it? So obviously you were beginning to suspect the manipulation was beginning to wear thin, and you were in a search for the truth. So
Yes.
what was the final trigger that you said to yourself, this is a scam, I'm ending this?
The last time, like the third time when he asked me for money, I was like, this must not be true. And my friend, my close friend, was like, don't you think it's a scam? And I was like, I don't think so. It looks legit to me, but let me figure it out. And then I start Googling, and then people are talking about it, like, the identities of American soldier are stolen, and then they will use those identities and then ask for money. And I also found like some lengthy explanation of why it is not true. And then I was like, okay, so that I found, and then also that another woman that was helping me on Facebook, and then it all came together, and then I confronted him. When I say confronted him, I would send him links and screenshots and everything I found, and then please tell me you're not scamming me. And then
And was that the orientation that you had at that time? Really, you were looking for him to validate that the relationship was real, that it wasn't a fake, rather than you were trying to confront him and say, look, this is a fake. In other words, there's sort of two approaches to that. One is, I believe you, but I need you to confirm it, or I don't believe you anymore. Tell me what's really going on.
so in that time, what was going on in my head is I thought that person who said he is the real person, but he is this is what actually going on in my head. I thought he stole like clothing of another soldier, and then he, okay, what's the word? Corn artist. That's what I thought. I didn't really know that scamming world. I thought he was a corn artist. He was the person who he said he was. So I actually believe that whatever the stolen picture or the identity of that person is that person, and then scam like, telling me lies to get money.
In other words, you thought he was the real face in the photo, but impersonating a soldier.
Yes, and then asking me money.
Right.
So I was like, okay. And yeah, and then after I sent him all that information, and then I woke up, and then he said, yes, I am a scammer and I am scamming you. And then he blocked me. And then of course I blocked him. And then I was very angry because the scammer, knew very much about Burmese culture and what's going on. And that made me very sad and angry.
Where did you send the money?
It's the name is totally different.
No,
And
I
I
know.
think,
What country did you send the money to?
oh, it's in United States.
Okay, so it was going to a money mule.
Yeah, so that's why I was thinking, okay, this person, is impersonating someone else and then like asking me money. And I didn't even think that it was from like, you know, other countries. Like I actually thought that everything is happening in this country, like in United States. So yeah.
One of the things they do is they use money mules as a way of sort of anchoring themselves in your country so that you believe that it's legit. The thing that I find interesting, and we occasionally get pushback from various people who believe that all of these accusations against African scammers are founded in racism. But the reality is, of course, we all know that not all of these scammers are African. There are scammers and Chinese that operate in Cambodia and Myanmar. Last year, I believe that there were some 20,000 Chinese nationals arrested in Myanmar and shipped back to China for trial and imprisonment. But in the cases where they're using money mules in this way, it is predominantly West Africa and predominantly Nigeria. And one of the things that I always find interesting is, to sort of put it bluntly, the racism of the Nigerian scammers. Because, okay, if it was a straight Anglo white victim, they use the colonization, the colonizer argument. And this has become very popular in African culture recently, that, oh, we're just getting what is due us from the colonizers. Well, we're sorry, but slavery didn't begin with the colonizers. It began with their own people. But I always find it interesting how deliberately and meticulously they use racism against races, specifically African Europeans and Asians, and how insidiously they can use the cultural information of other peoples to openly exploit them. And I find that incredibly offensive. And as you say, this was somebody who was experienced targeting victims from Myanmar because they knew things about your culture and were using it against you. Even though you're an American, that cultural heritage was one of the many points of vulnerability that can be used to sort of get through a person's armor. I mean, obviously there are other points of vulnerability, and we don't have to go into those today. So essentially, the criminals ghosted you. And most likely it was different than the person who was grooming you, because as you now know, these criminals work in teams.
Yes.
They have different people for different stages who are specialized in managing that particular stage, from the early contact and the luring process, through the grooming, through the manipulation, through the control, and ultimately the harvesting of the money. So the scam ended and you were angry. Tell us what happened next. How did it begin to progress in those early days?
So once it was confirmed that I was scammed, he blocked me, I blocked him. After all of that, I was crying, sobbing for a good 20 minutes, and out of anger. I felt like I was, okay, I was being using, all of that. And I was very angry. Like, I should not let my guard down, but I did. And then now this is happening to me. So, guilt and shame, and also, I cannot like forgive myself. And all of that created like anger. I was furious. Like, I could if that person was right in front of me, I could kill that person. How much anger I had at that time. And then I was like, okay, I can cry all I want, but it's not gonna do anything. So how am I gonna live forward? Like, I need to find the truth of it. I need to find what's going on. I need to find out what is it that I am missing and that I don't understand. And that's when I started searching on Google, and then I saw a bunch of, people posting and writing of their experiences. And then that's how I came across and found scars. And then I
And then you did.
saw yeah, and then I saw Scar's website, and then by then I was very cautious. I was not clicking anything. I read everything. I would click every tab that Scars has, and then there's one, and then I also saw, oh, Scar is recognized by the federal government, this and that, and then I read all the information, and then I was like, okay, but then it took me a while to get that. I was working and I was very busy, so to be honest, I didn't even have time to process what was happening. I was angry and I was crying the very first day, and that's about it. I didn't even have time to process my emotions, what's going on with me. And then in the meantime, I also talked to my close friends, people that I can trust, and they are from Africa. And then there was a gentleman I trust with my whole life, and then he was like, it might be from Nigeria. Like, he was telling me, and then I also talked to my other friends, and they were telling me the same thing. And then I began searching and searching, and then I was like, okay, it finding scars actually helped me, gave me a closure. Like, this is, like, okay, it's not just one person telling me this, the other person telling me this, like this whole organization, working towards like helping people like me is telling me this, and then there are many evidences like posting on the website. And then I was like, okay, I should talk to them and I should be a part of their support group. It took me I would say a good 5, 10, 15 minutes before I clicked join. I was sitting and I was thinking, okay, should I really do this? Like, am I gonna let the entire world know that this is what had happened to me? Like, okay. But then I was like, okay, even if the entire world knows what had happened to me, they should know, because this is not right. And nobody should go through what I went through. And I need to get some help. I need to be educated. I need to know what other people or what other women are thinking about it or going through, for their experience. And then after a good 5-10 minutes, I decided to click join the support group, and here I am.
Except that it sounds like this all happened within about the first hour after the scam ended, but in fact,
No, it took
weeks
me,
and weeks went by.
yeah, I would say, I think my scam ended in August, and then I joined the group in early September, because I finally took a vacation from work, and then I sat down and I was working on this. Like, I need to sort it out, because I was so angry that it was affecting my health, my well-being.
Of course, of course. Trauma is not a mental process. It's a total body process. What you're experiencing in your mind, and I'm speaking in generality, of course, but what you're experiencing in your mind affects your entire body. That anger and despair and desperation that you felt affects everyone physically as well. So you joined the support group, and now let's talk about the recovery process itself, because you're obviously not an end to that process, still in somewhat the early days. How many months has it been since your scam ended, since this crime ended?
Almost 6 months. In a few days, it's going to be 6 months.
Okay. So talk a little bit about your experience sort of coming into a support group and what you felt becoming part of that community and the ways in which it helped you, if you can.
So the very first feeling I had was, okay, I am not alone. And that was very comforting. It's like not I cannot even express it in words because I was so full of shame because I grew up using internet, right? So
Mhm.
I had this, I like, okay, I know how the internet works. I know how Facebook functions. I had that, I was arrogant. Or I don't know if I was arrogant or ignorant. Maybe
Overconfident might
both.
be a better word.
Okay. I was like, okay. So it really hit me hard because I grew up using internet, and usually that's someone else's story. I never thought that it could be me because I was very confident that, okay, because it wasn't the first time I got scammers approaching me. LinkedIn, oh my gosh, a lot of Chinese, usually it's guys. Well, the identity and the way they approach me looks like they are men. LinkedIn, even on my sometimes WhatsApp, sometimes like to my personal phone. So it was shocking too. So like when I joined the group, I was like, okay, I'm not alone. And it was very comforting. And then I started reading some of the posts, some of the articles, and then it took me a few days. But when I joined the group, I was knocked down, right, from the my experience that I don't know anything, and then I need to be humble and then receive whatever is posting in the group. And then it it was first it was very comforting, but the second it was very shocking to see how serious this is.
Yes.
To me, oh yeah, I was scammed, or I fell into the scam and then I lost some money. That's like my story. But then when I actually learn about this world, like, oh my gosh, this is a very organized crime. And what I went through was just a teeny tiny part of it. I mean, yes, it was very traumatizing for me, but then I was like, I can't imagine what other people are going through, like.
Well, as you know, we tell people just in the United States on a yearly basis now, there's over 2 million new relationship scam victims. And on a global basis, potentially as high as 5 to 6 million a year. The numbers are just staggering how many victims there are. Our estimates are well over 60 million, but it may be much higher than that because all we can go by is the numbers that are reported, and then looking at it from the lens that, okay, if only 1 to 3% report, and we have this number of reports, then what is the real number likely to be? And the cybersecurity industry guesstimates that in 2021, total global losses world were um, we're $6 trillion, and they're projecting that by 2025 it will be 10 trillion. That's almost the gross domestic product of the United States. This is the largest non-governmental economy in the world, larger than drugs, human trafficking, and terrorism losses combined. Even 9/11, the losses from that, financial losses I'm talking about, nothing in comparison to what's lost to these organized scams, organized crime on a global basis now. During the course of your recovery, you had many milestones, and you've stumbled a couple of times, and you've had some personal crises and worked through them. One of the things that we see often with survivors like yourself going through the process is they hit certain plateaus, partly due to their reactions to trauma being triggered, processing grief, which is a natural part of the ending of such a relationship, not that different than if you had a spouse die.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about the crises and the challenges that you had going from sort of 0 to your 6-month point now?
Sure. First, I was very angry, and then when I found scars, my some of my anger went away because now I realize that okay, it is not just my fault. Yes, I made a mistake, and also accepting that I made a mistake was very difficult.
Right.
Yeah. And I remember when I first joined, you suggested me to report it to the local office. It took me a few days because I was just so scared. So anger, and then also like I was frightened. I had moments of like I could not trust anybody. Yeah. And then I was like, I had my own doubts of like I knew SCAR was, it's a legitimate organization, but at the same time I was scared and I couldn't believe everything. And then but then I actually so throughout my recovery there were or there have been many, many times and many days where I just sit, not looking at my phone, not turning on anything, just sit in total silence and then think like and ask questions like okay, I'm feeling this, why am I feeling this? If I'm scared, why am I scared? If I'm angry, I ask myself, why are you that angry? If I don't believe this, or if I don't believe this person, I ask myself, why can't you believe this person? And then so before I make my local report, I would sit and then like ask myself like why can't I report to the local office? And then the first answer I got for myself was okay, it's because I'm scared of judgment, and I'm just scared
Right.
because I've never done that before. I don't know how to do it. But then you walked me through, and then you also sent me the videos and the articles, how to do it. And then finally I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And that was very
You're talking about the
necessary.
local police, right?
Yes. And it was very necessary for me to do it, just like you explained. After I made that report, some of my anger and then some of the stress went away. Mentally, I felt like I was in charge of my life again.
Right.
And then a lot of writing, because when I don't know for other people, but for myself, when you speak like different languages, sometimes it's very difficult to express my emotions and my thoughts verbally. I felt like there's no enough words for me to say it in
Right.
in my native language and English and other languages that I speak. So writing was very helpful because I didn't have to worry about my grammar. I didn't have to worry about did I use the wrong word? Like, did I use the wrong vocabulary? And nobody was correcting me. I didn't have to worry about what other people are thinking. So just I write whatever I have in my head, everything. And if my feelings was if I was processing my feelings or my thoughts in my first language, like Burmese, then I would write it out in Burmese. If I have my thoughts and feelings, whatever going on in English, then I will write it down in English. And that was very helpful.
Right.
And that helped me go to sleep at night. And then so even before, like in the middle of the scam, like even before the scam started, I already had seen like counseling section. but it's not, it wasn't like trauma. It was just for my other personal life like purposes. And then I talked about it, but it wasn't the same. Like they were helpful, but they couldn't go deep enough for me to actually recover. So then, I decided to join the STARS membership, and then right now I'm working with a real like a licensed, trained trauma counselor.
What you're talking
And
about there is the SCARS STAR membership, where we provide a
yes,
month of counseling or therapy uh, free through our partnership with BetterHelp.
yes, and it's better because then I don't really have to go and take some time off. I can just do it my own convenience time. So I usually free in the evening. So now my appointments are after work, when I don't have to worry about work, when I don't have to worry about anyone else but myself. So I can prioritize myself and then have that therapy section or counseling section. So that's
Um,
and
I'd like to go back a moment
mhm,
where we were talking about the crises that maybe you were experienced. And um, so, as you know, we have sort of this generalized model where usually at around the 6 month point, new victims will experience kind of crises. And partly it's coupled to the processing of grief. And this generalized model has a lot to do with when a person begins their recovery cycle as well. So if they really haven't made any progress on recovery for 6 months, well, then it's going to be 6 months after that, approximately. So I don't want to,
mhm.
go too deep into this, but you had a crisis not long ago. Can you
Oh
talk
yeah.
a little bit about that?
Yeah, I remember you mentioning it during one of our support calls about, having like 6 months crisis. And I was like, okay, I didn't think about it too much. I was like, okay. And then I stored that information in the back of my head. And then, just I went and did whatever I was supposed to do. And just one day out of nowhere,
Right.
just I was so angry, very angry. And I have not had that kind of anger for quite some time. And I was very surprised that I was angry. And I was angry at myself because I was angry. It's just the
Funny how that
emotion.
worked out. It's a vicious cycle. The snake eats
Yeah.
its tail.
I
The
was,
anger eats its anger.
yeah. And then like all some of my emotions that I had in the beginning of my recovery, it came back. Like guilt and shame and like not being able to forgive myself and angry that this thing, like this event happened to me. I was angry that why am I going through this? I was angry about like losing some money. I was angry the fact that I even have to think about it. I was angry the fact that I am in SCAR's support group. I was angry the fact that I am meeting a counselor. It's just everything that is happening in my life. I was angry. Everything, even the small thing.
People who don't understand often view these as basically a pity party. But it's not self-pity. It's, again, speaking in generalities, not you specifically, but in
Mhm.
generalities, it's natural to sort of put a lid on much of this during the early days as you're trying to get answers and trying to figure out what it was that happened and how it happened and why you became a victim and why you were vulnerable and why these scams work and all of that information. People tend to try to suppress some of it, and there reaches a point where the pressure cooker explodes and the suppression goes away and it all comes back up to the surface. That's actually a really great thing because it's part of processing the grief and the emotions and letting them come out. And then you can deal with them and then they can move on to the next stages. Now, I want to go back to the therapy that or counseling that you're getting now. And, you had prior experience in counseling, therapy, whatever, and now with this new process. And do you find that the telemedicine approach, in other words, going through a session on a screen, is easier, or is it different versus sitting in an office and talking to a therapist in person?
Personally, I prefer the tele method. Maybe because of like the generation I am in, I feel more comfortable, and and going into office, it might be more beneficial, maybe, but it's just taking so much time. You have to make an appointment, you have to get ready, and then you have to drive, you
Right.
get there, and then sometimes you have to wait for it. To me, it's not that efficient. And then sometimes, when you sit and then when you meet someone in person, like face to face, the first time it can be very intimidating. And especially if you are a victim of, such things, it's very scary. You are thinking even if the other person isn't thinking anything of you, you have all this, assumption of, okay, what if, and this and that. So yeah, I personally prefer through like video calls, therapy section. It's much more
Like we're
easier.
doing now.
Yeah, I like it. And I feel comfortable doing it.
Okay, good. I appreciate the feedback. And for our audience, SCARS offers its star membership for just $15 a year, and it includes a free month of trauma or other form of counseling or therapy. So that's several $100s worth of value immediately. It's a good deal. The reason that we do this is we recommend to every single victim of one of these online crimes to get counseling and therapy, because it's an important pillar in the circle of support that every victim needs to become a survivor. So it's an easy way of getting over the inertia, getting over the resistance, and connecting with a therapist who can really help you. And then what you do after that is up to each individual, but we found it to be very beneficial. And we've obviously tested some of their tens of thousands of therapists ourselves to see how good that service is. And we've been very, very pleased with the quality of the service that they provide. So, what would you suggest to other scam survivors who haven't yet either fully accepted their crime or have not really decided to engage in a real recovery program? What would you recommend to them that they should be doing?
It's very difficult to, open up and talk about things like that because first of all, it's embarrassing. But, everyone makes mistakes and we all have our own history of things that we didn't do it right, things that we do it right. And instead of, dwelling in the past, just put your guard down and then come forward and, join SCARS, a support group, or talk to a trauma therapist or a counselor and get help. And I would say getting counseling it's very good. It's beneficial. It's really good for you. Like our well-being, but I also would suggest to join a support group, a legitimate one, not just, you know, someone doing it out of passion. Because this, the Roman scam and being a victim of Roman scam, it's very complicated. Just, you know, like personally, I find it complicated because, you know, it's just it's very scary. And navigating through the system, it's also complicated. And scars have been, you know, giving us the survivors, giving us instructions and guidance and support. So I would say, yes, you can feel whatever you want to feel, and you can have whatever thoughts you want to have because it's yours. But then at the same time, it's important to listen our inner self, like, because, you know, your inner self is telling you to break free. And to me, that's the main reason why I you know, started to join the SCARS group.
Excellent, thank you. One last thing I would like to ask you. Would you like to say something to other scam victims from Myanmar in Burmese so that you can give them a message of reality and hope, and that they can become survivors too, but do it in Burmese? I won't have any idea what you're saying, but
Okay.
you know, in your support group, there is another Burmese woman. So maybe extend, you know, a little bit of your wisdom to other Burmese victims who may see this.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Got to switch that, flip
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
switches
I
you to
now
the other
have to
language.
switch it. Yes. Okay. ကျမက online မှာဒီပေါ့နော် American စစ်သားဆိုပြီးတော့မှအယောင်ဆောင်ထားတဲ့လူတယောက်ကနေချင်းကပ်ပြီးတော့မှကျမစီကနေပတ်စံတွေလိမ်ခိုးသွားတာတွေရှိတယ်။အဲ့လိုမျိုးကနေကျမဒီSCARS group နဲ့ကျမဟိုတွေ့တယ်သူတို့ဒီ group ကို join တာပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့ကျမလိုမျိုးပဲကျမကဲ့သို့ပဲ online မှာပတ်စံအလိမ်ခံရတဲ့သူကျမလိုမျိုးဟို American စစ်သားဆိုပြီးတော့မှအလိမ်ခံပြီးတော့မှပတ်စံအတောင်းမခံရသည့်တိုင်အောင်ဒီလိုမျိုးပဲ online မှာပဲမိကဲ့သို့သောပုံစံမျိုးနဲ့မဆိုပတ်စံအလိမ်တောင်းခံရတယ်အကယ်ပတ်စံအတောင်းမခံရရင်တော့မှအဲ့လိုမျိုးပေါ့နော်အချစ်ကိုလိမ်လေလှည့်ပြားပြီးတော့မှခံယူထားရတဲ့သူတွေအားလုံးကိုကျမပြောချင်တာကဒီဟိုမိတ်ဆွေတယောက်တည်းမဟုတ်ဘူးပေါ့နော်လူတွေအများကြီးပဲဒီပြဿနာကိုကြုံတွေ့နေကြရဖြစ်တယ်အဲ့တော့အရှက်အကြောင်းဟိုကိုယ့်ရဲ့ရှက်စိတ်တွေကြောက်စိတ်တွေကိုခဏဘေးဖယ်ထားပြီးတော့မှဂျေစုပြုပြီးတော့မှအကူအညီကိုရှာပါဒီ therapy ပဲဖြစ်ဖြစ်ဒီ support group တွေပဲဖြစ်ဖြစ် join မှာပြီးတော့မှအကူအညီကိုရယူပါဘာဖြစ်လို့လဲဆိုတော့ကျမတို့ရဲ့ဒီကျမ်းမာဖို့စိတ်ကျမ်းမာဖို့အရင်အရေးကြီးတယ်စိတ်ကျမ်းမာကိုယ်ကျမ်းမာမှာကျမတို့အနာဂတ်မှာကျမတို့ရဲ့ဒီစိတ်ကူးအိမ်မက်တွေကိုအကောင့်ထဲပေါ်နိုင်မှာဖြစ်တယ်အဲ့ဒါကြောင့်မလို့ကျေးဇူးပြုပြီးတော့မှဒီဗီဒီယိုလေးကိုတွေးခဲ့မိတယ်ဆိုရင်ပေါ့နော်ဒီ SCARS group ကိုအကြောင်းကြားပါဆက်သွယ်လုပ်ပါအကူအညီလိုပါလို့ကျမအနေနဲ့အကြံပေးချင်ပါတယ် Do you want me to say it in English what I just said?
Oh, no,
Okay.
that's good. So I think that's it for today. I'm so grateful that you allowed us to have this conversation with you, and that you allowed us to record this so that other victims will be able to hear your words and understand the experience that you had and how transformative this can be as you come out of these scams and find your way onto the path of recovery, and what that journey is like. And obviously your journey is far from over. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's simply that as you know now and can see, this is a long process. It takes the mind and body a long time to heal from trauma, and trauma doesn't go away by itself. The grief can be processed as long as a person is willing to allow it to happen, but the trauma always requires more professional help. And we're not a mental health care organization, which is why we recommend that every survivor see a trauma counselor. But this is one of those unique opportunities where people sort of finally have an opportunity to open the user's manual for their brain and figure out really what's going on in driving their emotional decision making, looking at past traumas and how that can contribute to vulnerability. There is no shame in being a survivor of a scam. It wasn't your fault. It isn't the fault of any victim. Yes, we all say that there was a mistake, and that mistake was simply talking to strangers that you don't know online. It's not a safe world out there, and we wish it were. It just isn't that way. Every generation has its points of vulnerability and its places where you should not go. It's just part of life. So thank you, Zoe, for an incredible interview. You did a great job. We hope that as you reflect back on this, that you're going to feel much more positive and empowered by having done this. So I want to thank you very much. Is there any final thought you'd like to make?
It takes a real courage to get help. If I said it right, like, you know, like if you even have the thought of, okay, I'm gonna get help, I would say you're doing a great job. So keep on doing that.
And one last thing I'd like to say that I think you've overcome tremendously well is when you go to the police, it's important to not go in with expectations.
Mhm.
And regardless of who you are, what your gender, what your race, what your culture, what your nationality is, just go in with the objective of communicating that this crime happened so that it will be on record. Local police are not going to be able to rush out and arrest someone in another country. That's unrealistic thinking. But the purpose of reporting is so that the government is more aware of these crimes. But as you said earlier, it's about empowering yourself to take control of the situation, to take control back from the criminals, that you're doing something to break the hold that they had over you. And that, I think, is the most important aspect of reporting these crimes. And really, that only happens at the local police level. Reporting it online to the FBI or the FTC is too easy. It's too anonymous. It's too painless for really that benefit to come through. But when you talk to a person face to face, whether it's the local police, or as we recommend now for people in the United States, to talk to the United States Secret Service, you're talking to a real person. And remember, your expectations are going to be mirrored in that other person. So the experience can be good, but if you go in and are hostile, they'll mirror that reaction back to you, and it can become an unpleasant experience. Either way, once it's done, you have empowerment, you have the control returned to your hands, and that's important. Thank you again so much for joining us today. This has been a great interview. This video is copyright 2023 SCARS. And if you are a victim of a relationship scam, whether that is a relationship/investment scam or just a pure relationship scam, help is available to you. Report the crime, cut off all contact with the criminals, and remember, it's criminals, not singular, and contact our organization through againstscams.org. To join one of our support groups is support.againstscams.org. If you're curious about our membership, look it up at membership.againstscams.org. You're always welcome to contact us by email at contact@againstscams.org. McGuinness, Managing Director for SCARS, the Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams Incorporated. We are a government-recognized crime victims assistance and crime prevention nonprofit organization based in Miami, Florida, with offices in Monterrey, Nuevo Leon, Mexico, and partners and affiliates in more than 60 countries around the world. Sadly, not in Myanmar at this point in time, but we're working on that. And thank you, everyone, and we hope this has been helpful and beneficial to you.